In 2013, the Seattle Seahawks did the unthinkable. After nearly a decade of trash seasons, they reached the mountaintop, capped by a dominating Super Bowl win over a legend. The saying goes, defense wins championships, and Seattle proved that with a unique unit that rivaled the greats. While commanding defenses of the past typically revolved around a strong front seven, the Seahawks destroyed teams with a hard-hitting secondary ready to knock heads, gaining the nickname the Legion of Boom. It's a plan Seattle put in motion years earlier. In 2010, the Seahawks hired acclaimed USC head coach Pete Carroll, who media members pegged as an overhyped candidate. Alongside Carroll, the Seahawks brought in executive John Schneider to take over general manager duties, and the duo orchestrated a top-flight defense. On the back ends were ball hawk safeties Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. On the outside, Seattle had shutdown corner Richard Sherman. Opposite Sherman was Brandon Browner, a stout number 2 who could be the leading guy on most other franchises. The boys swarming the back half of the field were supported by a versatile front seven, including Bruce Irvin, KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, Cliff Averill, and Michael Bennett. The duo struck gold with a stingy defensive unit, but Carroll and Schneider landed key gems offensively as well. In 2010, they swung a trade for former first-round running back Marshawn Lynch, whose bruising running style can only be described best by him.
Just clicked in my mind that if you just run through somebody's face, a lot of people ain't gonna be able to take that over and 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 over again. Run through a motherfucker face.
2 years later, they got the steal of the draft, nabbing quarterback Russell Wilson, who could kill opponents with his arm and legs. As Seattle entered the 2014 season, they lost Browner in free agency, but the defense didn't miss a beat. After commanding performance in the divisional round and a miracle comeback conference championship win, the Seahawks looked to repeat. Usually, we only recognize a dynasty when it's all said and done, but with Seattle, we were witnessing something special in real time. And if not for a crushing game-sealing goal line interception, Seattle could have very well hoisted the Lombardi Trophy again. The loss stung, but after back-to-back seasons smothering opponents with a ruthless defense and a young quarterback ascending into stardom, journalists believed Seattle was just getting started. Except, that whole dynasty talk crumbled under a team dynamic that was bound to fall apart. Just want to take a second to show some love to our patrons. You've asked for Collapse, and with your help, we're able to bring it back. This episode has been up on our Patreon for months, and if you want to get exclusive access to early releases, special drops like our podcast, and more, you could just as easily become a member. All the cool kids are doing it, so I promise it's okay to conform and join. I'll see you there, but for now, let's get back to Collapse. So yeah. Throwing the ball in second down at the goal line while having arguably the league's toughest runner maybe was too much of a big brain idea. But as Seattle planned to field essentially the exact squad the following season, journalists and odds makers believed they had a strong shot at returning to the game's biggest stage. Except, it's never easy to keep everyone happy. As the 2015 season crept closer to week 1, negotiations between Chancellor and Seattle hit a snag. With both sides standing on business, their star safety missed the first 2 games. The Seahawks lost both matchups without Cam, and more than his ability to impact games, teammates greatly missed his leadership. After seeing his brothers suffer back-to-back L's, Cam knew he had to return. No deal was done, something Cam planned on revisiting later, but more than anything, fulfilling the championship aspirations with his squad motivated him to return. With the Chancellor back in the fold, the Seahawks finished the regular season historically. However, defense was never Seattle's issue. Lynch missed over half the season, and the offense sputtered without him as Seattle dropped to a wildcard team. They gutted out a tough first-round win, but Seattle fell far from their title hopes. It was a hangover year, proving they weren't invincible, and the 2016 offseason presented problems. After an injury-ravaged year and struggling through contract battles, Lynch called it quits in perfect Marshawn fashion, tweeting out a pic of his cleats draped over electrical wires with the deuces emoji during the middle of the Super Bowl. Losing a tone setter for the most successful era in franchise history had to be a hard pill to swallow, and just 2 days after Marshawn slammed the door shut on a potential return, Bruce Irvin also dipped in free agency. The Seahawks lost an elite pass rusher in Irvin, but even with his departure, Seattle's defense was still expected to lead them back to glory. That side of the ball continued to dominate, showing potential for a deep postseason run until they unraveled. In the December Week 13 blowout win over the Panthers, Earl Thomas suffered a severe broken tibia, leaving him openly pondering retirement. Without their safety, Seattle held on to finish the season as division champs, but the squad seemed weirdly off at times. During an October win over the Atlanta Falcons, Sherman seemed ready to throw hands with his own teammates when he came off the field hot after the defense allowed an easy touchdown. After the matchup, Sherman explained his frustration stemmed from a failed adjustment by Kelsey McCray, who was filling in for the injured Chancellor. Miscommunication happens a lot in the NFL, but Sherman's frustrations lingered through the rest of the game. When Sherman tipped a pass in the fourth quarter that teammate Earl Thomas picked off, the cornerback didn't seem to care. After all but securing the win following a late pass incompletion, Sherman walked off the field as if nothing happened. Sherman's a proudly passionate player, but that moment was nearly the angriest his teammates had ever seen him. Carroll didn't stress it at all, knowing he had a group of guys in his locker room who would get through it and back each other no matter what. Plus, in their postseason road back to the Super Bowl, I'm sure they could all look back on that moment and laugh. Oh. As they hit the 2017 offseason, the franchise seemed open to trading one of their pioneering players. Our report specifically stated it would require the right deal to move Sherman. It seemed odd that Seattle openly entertained the thought of losing one of the NFL's best defensive backs. Carroll had been candid about Sherman's blowups throughout the season, but issues ran deeper behind the scenes. In a May 2017 ESPN feature detailing Sherman's trade, journalist Seth Wickersham uncovered a June 2014 incident that ignited a rift between the team. During a fiery practice in which Sherman had started a fight a few plays earlier, he intercepted Russ and let out some feelings that in hindsight seemed to have been pent up. According to folks on the scene, Sherm tossed the ball back to Russ, offering some not-so-friendly words of encouragement, leading to another team tussle. With Russ shell-shocked and Sherman irate, Carroll shut down practice. Sherman aimed to humble Russ after the Super Bowl fame and toughen him up, but Carroll didn't see it that way. The coach held meetings reminding players to uplift each other, but to specifically support their quarterback. That message fell on deaf ears to a defense that felt Carroll had shown Russ special treatment over the last few years. They already looked at their QB sideways, but after that heartbreaking Super Bowl interception, any chemistry left between a team that seemed destined for greatness all but disappeared. Sherman took the Super Bowl loss harder than others, which you can see in real time after the interception. With just one trophy and their title window closing, Sherman placed the blame on his coach and quarterback. This is all info before the start of the 2017 season, by the way. However, a month after reports first surfaced, GM John Snyder seemed ready to dead the trade talks. Retaining Sherman was messy as the team's dirty laundry became public, and the GM stood by his guns, saying it had to be a crazy offer to lose their top corner. With Sherm returning and the team finally signing Chancellor to a contract extension later that same summer, Seattle appeared to be back on track. However, untimely injuries derailed their hopes yet again. In a midseason matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, Sherman ruptured his Achilles, ultimately ruling him out for the remainder of the season. It's an issue Sherman claimed he experienced all year, but felt he had to play through the pain. Nearly a week later, Chancellor joined Sherman on IR with a lingering neck issue. Down two prominent figures and a load of others playing banged up, Seattle's defense looked like a shell of itself. And for the first time in 5 years, the franchise missed the postseason outright. Journalists expected major changes for Seattle in the 2018 offseason, and Schneider only fanned the flames. Less than a week after Schneider put the entire team on the block, reports swirled that Sherman wasn't expected to return to Seattle after multiple teammates sent out cryptic tweets hinting at his departure. Nothing was official on Sherman, but in the wake of the news, Seattle traded defensive end Michael Bennett. A few days later, the Seahawks officially released Sherman. Both those decisions were in the hands of the franchise, but that same summer, it hurt no less to see Cliff Averill and Cam Chancellor announce their early retirements. In what was a clear rebuilding year, the dudes who moved on from Seattle spent the summer airing out their grievances. In a September 2018 Sports Illustrated article, writers Greg Bishop and Robert Klemko caught up with the past members of the LOB at Sherman's wedding in the Dominican Republic. The wedding was a celebration for Sherman and his new bride, of course, but a handful of players saw the reunion as an opportunity to toast Sherman escaping the sinking ship. Happy conversations about the future ultimately turned back into the frustration about the dynasty that never was, but the consensus from the group echoed Sherman's disgust for Russ. Carroll's constant favoritism of Wilson ate away at members of the team who felt they were held to a higher standard, while their quarterback often got praised for mid-performances. The lack of accountability struck the locker room. Again, all of this was remarkably before the gut-wrenching Super Bowl loss. Wilson's interception was just the icing on the cake, leading people to believe that Carroll specifically called a pass to give Russ better odds at winning MVP. Carroll had long preached a specific philosophy of football to his team, and to see him turn on that in such a crucial spot, players no longer believed in his word. As the Legion of Boom crumbled, several current and former players thought the pressure mounted for Schneider and Carroll. Considering the circumstances, Seattle exceeded expectations with a surprising 2018 season, nearly advancing to the divisional round of the playoffs. But the year didn't come without its hiccups. In a Week 4 matchup against the Cardinals, Thomas sustained a nasty leg injury, ending his season. As he got carted off the field, Thomas flipped off the Seahawks bench, making clear his days in Seattle were more than likely done. On the bright side, Carroll's bet on Russ seemed to pay off as his QB returned to Pro Bowl form, erasing doubts he could be a franchise leader. With a strong season under his belt, journalists believed the post-LOB era wouldn't be so tough with Russ leading the way. But as the Seahawks looked toward that future, they lost some more members of the past as Thomas dipped at the end of the year. If former players thought Carroll and co. overly committed to Russ in the past, I just know the LOB group chat had to be on fire when Seattle inked Russ to a massive contract extension in spring 2019. Seattle's loyalty to Russ seemed to pay off as the QB had one of his best seasons in 2019, earning his first All-Pro nod and nearly leading Seattle back to the conference championship. This wasn't the old Seahawks, and going into the 2020 season, Seattle planned to lean on Russ even more. Off-season talks revolved around opening up the playbook to let the ball fly, rallying behind the phrase, "Let Russ Cook." Initially, Russ stepped up gourmet performances, leading Seattle to an undefeated start as he played his way into early MVP contention. It's an award Wilson wasn't afraid to admit he aimed for. But just as fast as he cooked up those Michelin star level plates, he came crashing down to a fast food drive-through level of play. Despite the rough patch, Seattle reclaimed the NFC West, but got upset in the wildcard round behind a dreadful performance from Russ. Post-game, the normally cool, calm, and collected Carroll questioned Wilson's play and thought offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer failed to put his QB in the best spot to succeed. With their first-round exit, it was Seattle's sixth year in a row failing to make it back to the NFC Championship game. The further they were removed from those dynasty hopes of the past, the more faces from that bygone era disappeared as longtime linebacker KJ Wright left in free agency. Carroll publicly challenging Russ after their playoff loss seemed to be a coach holding his quarterback to a high standard, but behind the scenes, a divide formed, and not only between Russ and Carroll. As Russ aired it out more last season, Often throwing caution to the wind, Seahawks executives wondered if the QB they built their franchise around had his priorities in order. For a pairing that seemed destined to stand the test of time, Carroll and Wilson's idea of success no longer aligned. Carroll built a championship-winning career playing a brand of ball that focused on keeping things on the ground, avoiding turnovers, and using the run game to open up the pass. Russ, on the other hand, strived to be one of the NFL's all-time greats and believed Carroll's conservative style stopped him from getting there. When Carroll caved and the team bent to Wilson's preferred style of play, Carroll felt like he had to snatch control when the turnovers racked up. In his decision, Carroll uncannily preached to his team and coaching staff the importance of accountability, a message that seemed to go right over Russ's head. Confidence is key, and Russ continued to push for more control within the franchise, but they no longer saw him as that guy, which he didn't handle well. For a dude that typically pushes positivity, Russ took to the media during the 2021 offseason to question Seattle's direction going forward. The two sides seemed to reach a breaking point, with Russ and his camp openly exploring potential trade destinations. It was a clear battle of power and control. But as Russ remained the starter going into the 2021 season, equipped with a new OC he strongly endorsed, maybe Seattle could get back on track. Yeah. Amid the disorder and experiencing the first losing season of his career, a divorce between Russ and the Seahawks seemed inevitable. As Seattle entered the 2022 offseason in what felt like another turning point for the franchise, they released longtime LB Bobby Wagner. And following endless reports regarding his future in Seattle, the franchise officially traded Wilson in March. Russ outlasted all his peers from the championship squad, but when the trade went through, it didn't come as a shock. It was a long time coming, and former Seattle players rejoiced in the moment, relieved to see Wilson's true colors exposed. Carroll found success as he spent the next few seasons navigating a roster that had a dramatic overhaul since their title days, but in 2024, the franchise and Carroll agreed it was time to move on as he transitioned into a new role. In 2025, the coach officially stepped away, joining the Raiders, leaving Schneider as the last man standing. Failing to reach championship expectations isn't a rare phenomenon, but Seattle was supposed to be more. They were meant to be a dynasty. With a historic defense and a young QB still in his prime, winning just one championship doesn't fit that criteria. But when egos and personalities collided, the team caved in under its own weight. Thanks for watching this episode of Collapse. You guys have been asking for it, and it felt so great to bring it back. If you're a subscriber to our Patreon, that means you already got early access to this video. If not, I bet you're jealous of the folks that saw this already, huh? But no sweat, there's always time to join. A subscription comes with tons of goodies like seeing your name beautifully displayed on screen during our end card, polls, early access to vids, and much more. But as always, we'll be cooking up here on YouTube, so don't forget to like and subscribe and keep on coming back.